So today I wanted to talk about an idea I had on finding soulmates and whether or not you believe in soulmates. That isn't exactly the goal of this video. It's how do you find someone that's somewhat along your frequency or someone who matches your values and things like that. And for some of us, we can find that person and some of us we can't. And the way I see it, it's a continuous iteration of who we are that'll correspond to a certain person in your life. So starting with this, in a regular relationship, how exactly do we find attraction, or how exactly do we decide on somebody to spend our lives with? Initially, we'll have many parts of ourselves in IFS, or internal family systems. A lot of us have multiple parts. We have a work self, a type you show up to work as, a family self. How exactly do you show up in a family setting with your brothers and sisters? A social self, maybe you're at a party and you don't quite know everybody, but you kind of have this social persona. Some people might call it like, I'm an ambivert, I'm an extrovert and an introvert. This is part of the social self they have. And of course, relationship self, where the weirdest parts of you come out because you're in a very trusting and safe place to be that part of yourself. So all of us have these parts of ourselves that'll match these parts of ourselves and our significant other. Typically after dates, there's a sense that, we align on so many values, we tick off so many boxes, and often these boxes are the things we see congruently within each other. A good example, a saying someone might say is, they know me so well despite only knowing them for a few weeks, or you just get me so much compared to others. And when they say they get me so much, a lot of these lines that you see are being fulfilled, in a sense, that all these dimensions of myself are being fulfilled. And this is something I refer to as ontological rootedness. And what exactly is that? Ontological rootedness is something I found in a book by Simon Mays called Love, A Brief History. Ontological rootedness is ontological rootedness. This is the feeling that I call ontological rootedness. Ontology being the branch of philosophy that deals with the nature and experience of existence. Nature and experience of existence. This is important because when we match with certain criterias, certain cells within us, and we see that reflected within a person, this kind of validates our nature and experience of our own existence. So my suggestion is that we will love only those very rare people or things or ideas or disciplines or landscapes that can inspire in us a promise of ontological rootedness. If they can, we will love them regardless of their other qualities, regardless of how beautiful or good they are, of how generous or altruistic or compassionate, of how interested in our life and projects, and regardless even of whether they value us. For love's overriding concern is to find a home for our life and being. Home for our life and being. So this comes from the kind of notion that your partner ought to feel like home, because home will validate your nature and experience of existence. And love doesn't exactly care that you're generous, altruistic, or compassionate. It doesn't care about these positive aspects. And a good way to kind of imagine this is when someone is tightly bonded or attached to somebody, they will do anything to keep that bond. Whether or not you'll argue that's love versus attachment, these people will go to the ends of the earth to be with their loved one. So they can cheat, they can lie, their lover can be in prison. It doesn't really matter, because the more important piece is this person gives a home for our life and being. So it doesn't matter if they're a bad person. Often people will overlook these bad qualities in order to fulfill this home criteria. So this is why I underline regardless, because as much as we like to think these qualities kind of affect our love for someone, it's mostly whether we find a home in them. And home is fulfilled by however many of these lines we can kind of match with, because this person will understand us the best and will give fruit to kind of our existence in our life. An example of the book is Love, A Brief History. And an example of this book is, and I know this is religious, so I'm not sure if it quite happened, but it's a very good example to think of. It's the story of Abraham and Isaac. And when God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac to prove his loyalty to him, you can see that although Abraham loves Isaac, and normally you wouldn't kill someone that you love, but you can see that God, his faith in God, promises a bigger, a more important piece of home that his son can ever give. That God is his home and that he's willing to sacrifice his son so that this stays, this idea, this feeling, this nature and experience of existence. So I know this story it might not be based in reality, but often you can see in history where people, religious zealots, will sacrifice their families, they'll push them, force them to do certain things they don't want to in the name of a God. It's because that God can give them this idea of home. So this idea of ontological rootedness is going to be my theory, or my basis, or at least Simon May's basis, of what will attract you to a partner. And again, it's not that they're generous, it's not that they're kind exactly. It's rather that these selves match up to the other selves of the other person. So what does this have to do with a soulmate? So this is a regular relationship, and then a soulmate relationship is someone who understands your soul, so your entire being. So what does that exactly entail? So this is you. Once you integrate and find who you are, your authentic self, what that means is integrated, all these selves are going to become one. You won't need a work self, because typically we design these cells to protect ourselves in life. So a work self might be very compliant, it might be very agreeable, so that you can live in harmony at work and not get in trouble by your boss and whatnot. But there's a certain point where our true self will emerge regardless of the consequences of how we show up in life. So you can say that your inner self is going to bleed in your work self. You'll start being more of yourself. Your relationship self might bleed in here. Your social self might even disappear to be replaced by your inner self. So all of these will kind of combine into one integrated and authentic self. And the importance of being an integrated and authentic self is you must vibrate or respond on a soul level if you want a soul mate. And in order to be a soulmate, you need to find who you are at the very core of who you are, not who you are when you're exactly afraid or you run from a challenge. Who you are if you kind of step into your power. And by being on this frequency or level, your partner or your soulmate will be able to recognize, hey, these are the exact qualities that either I admire or that I have that will give me ontological rootedness. So this is how you find your soulmate. And many of us aren't living on this level. Many of us are kind of restricted by our traumas, restricted by limiting beliefs. And so naturally they won't find their soulmate. But you might argue that if we wait our entire lives to be, healed and find our integrated authentic self, we might wait our whole lives, because this kind of has a notion that we need to be healed. And it's a good argument, but I would say that you don't exactly need to be healed to find your soulmate, as long as you continuously keep growing together. So here, I put on an iceberg. When we start out in life, we develop a lot of selves. And the argument we were talking about here might be around, let's say, here, between the spectrum of having multiple selves and one whole self. We might be in the middle where we're figuring it out. It might be, when you're in early 20s, mid 20s. And so some people find, their soulmate, their forever, despite being in this stage. And it's because they constantly can work together and can find pieces where it works, where they don't have to exactly have all these aligned yet, but eventually through work, and I would say their own dedication, it'll eventually be aligned. So that's what I would argue. And I would actually say many of us don't have this luxury of finding our one and done person. So what exactly happens when we don't find our one and done person? This is where we'll find pieces of home in multiple people in our lives, but they may not be the best house to live in. So you'll know that most people will have, let's say, 2 or 3 girlfriends, 2 or 3 boyfriends within their lifetime. I actually don't know the average, but we'll find pieces of home in these people at certain points in our lives. But whether or not they're there to stay is an entirely different question. So whether or not they're the best house to live in, a lot of us don't know. And to be plain and simple, we just don't know. You'll hear some people have 4 marriages and they've been divorced 4 times. Some people kind of get it on the first try. Some people have 3, 4 relationships, and that doesn't quite work either. And although all those people probably represented some pieces of home, they weren't exactly at the end of it to the integrated authentic self. So people's relationship romantic path will look different for each person, but what I find is that they typically go through this process over and over and over again. So this process is the process of becoming yourself, becoming your integrated authentic self. If being yourself does not work, then go find yourself. Because many of us attempts to be ourselves, but if you're, let's say, socially awkward, being yourself at that present moment isn't exactly getting you the best brownie points. So being yourself isn't working, then you must go find yourself. So this is a constant iteration of finding yourself. Each of these levels is pretty much the exact same thing that goes deeper and deeper into finding yourself. So this can look like I had a significant other in high school that resonated with some of these fields. And typically in high school, we don't think much about values or things that we have in common. There only needs to be certain intersections. They don't exactly have to be the whole piece of the pie. But as we grow older, we kind of look for more pieces of the pie, more things that align and make sense to us to be in a long-term relationship with. So first, let's say high school, you're just a part of yourself. You haven't really fully done the work to individuate. Maybe your parents will help you. Whatever environment you're in will play on how much of you, yourself, you've uncovered. So part of yourself will resonate with a partner that resonates with a part of yourself. And you'll find in the relationship, okay, I like this, I didn't like this was kind of toxic, this one was kind of healthy. And then you ultimately break up, and you'll take the lessons from that relationship and say, I won't compromise on certain things. These are where my value stands. So by creating boundaries, and you end up being more of yourself. And then you do this again, finding a partner that resonates with more of yourself. More of yourself means you're going to tick a lot of these boxes, or at least more of these boxes. So let's say from 2, you go to 3 boxes, because you're becoming more of yourself. And then you do it again. Say, college relationship, breakup, find more of yourself, be more of yourself. You reach mid-20s, you'll find a coworker relationship or a hobby relationship, or a person within your hobby that turns into a relationship. And then again, you'll learn the lessons from that. And then you'll be more of yourself. And this necessarily doesn't have to be a relationship. It could be some level of soul searching. Say you traveled the world, or like you kind of mingled with your family more because your family is where you'll really be tested on how you handle interpersonal relationships. But in the end, you find some more pieces of yourself, of what you value and what you don't, and what you've learned in life. And so this will go on for eternity. It doesn't matter if you're on your 2nd marriage, your 3rd marriage, your 4th marriage. You're going to be more of yourself. And you're going to find a partner that resonates with more of yourself. And ultimately, this will lead to being yourself. Because although there isn't quite a limit on being more of yourself, because life is this like continuous explorative journey, I do think there's going to be a threshold, and say this number right here is like say this is like 80%. You found 80% of yourself, something like that. And now you're finally, for the most part, being yourself. And because you're vibrating on this frequency of integrated and authentic self, you're going to attract the partner that resonates with not just more of yourself or part of yourself, but with your whole self. And because this comes from a place of authenticity, this is going to be a very good match. So a note here, a person may be initially right for us, but wrong as we grow, and may indicate that we are no longer in alignment with our authentic self. Some people might phrase this as we outgrow people. I don't really use that phrase. I like to say we just grow in different ways. Our paths start diverging. Because when you say I outgrew people, you kind of put it more in like this hierarchical system where, yeah, in some ways people do stay less mature or do not step into their own power or their own reality. And there is that acknowledgement, but I don't find that perspective helpful in having, I guess, more humility, I guess, or even more compassion, I guess, for the other person. But anyways, yeah, the paths in a relationship might diverge, and when it diverges, but we still desire to tread this line of relationship, even though our authentic selves are on the side here, will eventually become very angry, actually, that we're denying who we are. I'm going to put A here for authentic self, versus, or I'll put it red, versus what's in the relationship. So as our authentic self keeps going, this gap will become bigger. This gap will become bigger and bigger. And then we realize we can no longer be in this relationship because we're sacrificing who we're kind of meant to be. Ultimately, I would say it's for the better of you. It's neither really good or bad that we kind of separate or diverge paths. I think it's more of just a matter of how life progresses.